Dude, is it okay if I just yap for a sec about one of my favorite bosses from Hollow Knight Silksong? Also, spoilers ahead for the Cogwork Dancer fight. If you haven't heard of this boss before and you're interested in playing the game, please do not proceed. So here in the background, I'm going to have my own footage of the boss fight playing. What you're watching here is my earnest first crack at this boss. I've never seen it before. So a lot of the time when I hear people talking about Dark Souls boss fights, one of the things that they always bring up is that a well-made fight feels like a dance. It's this sort of give and take where you're constantly reacting to what the enemy is doing and then responding with your own moves. And here's the thing about this boss fight specifically. The intentional simplicity in how this boss is designed makes this dance concept really easy to see, even if you're not familiar with this kind of game. And immediately, from the first attack, you can know exactly what this boss is about. Every movement, every attack is perfectly telegraphed and matches the tempo of the music. Because the boss's movements are so rigid in adhering to this specific rhythm, it makes the give and take of this timing extremely easy to see. Just from what's playing in the background, it should be readily apparent the rhythm that will be dictated for this entire fight. It's literally a two-step dance. You have the telegraph, and then you have the attack. There is a clear window where you are able to respond and attack them, and a clear window where you're expected to dodge. This boss fight also makes really great use of phase changes. There aren't a lot of hard lines as to what defines a boss phase, but essentially any time that the boss changes up its behavior or attack patterns or any of that, you can consider that to be a phase change. With that in mind, this boss has 4 distinct phases. The first phase, where you're just acclimating to the boss itself, getting to understand their rhythm, trying to learn their different attacks, is the slowest phase. But as the fight progresses and you make it further and further into the dance, new moves are added, the tempo is increased, curveballs are thrown your way to test how well you understand this fight. And what's even more impressive, the way things change from phase to phase is clearly telegraphed for you before the enemies even start attacking. These enemies are like clockwork automatons. They need to be wound up before they can start moving. And so in their little, let's call them recharge stations, there's these huge gears you can see on the outside that point towards the center of the arena. At the start of any phase of this fight, you will see the boss's tempo and rhythm reflected in how the gears turn. For the second phase, the only real change is that the tempo increases. Mostly, this just establishes for the player on their first time encountering this. This lets them know that these are the parameters of the fight that will be allowed to change over the course of it. The third phase, which is beautifully introduced by the gears, takes these 2 enemies who have been in sync for the entire fight up to this point and purposely staggers them so that they are no longer in sync with each other. This is the maximum difficulty for this fight. Not only is it faster than the previous waves, but it becomes less predictable. It's harder to keep track of where both of these enemies are going to be when they're not in lockstep. It's also worth pointing out that as the dancers ratchet up in tempo and change their style, the music perfectly accompanies them. The way the music builds across phases 1 and 2 so that it reaches its crescendo during phase 3. There's this wonderful chaotic energy that's imbued by the fight no longer adhering to this strict rhythm. When the enemies are offset, that's when the music truly has the opportunity to come alive and do things that you really wouldn't expect. Every boss in this game seems to have some sort of signature attack. For the Cogwork Dancers, it's this sort of combined attack at the center of the screen that ends with the two enemies embracing each other, looking into each other's eyes, like a pair of dancers in a regal ballroom. Just through this single attack, it humanizes these enemies and makes them appear as a romantic couple. All of these factors put together make the final phase of the fight, the fourth phase, emotionally devastating. The fourth phase only begins once you've defeated one of the two bosses, at which point the remaining Cogwork Dancer returns to their recharge station, there's a fake out ending to the fight, and then they slowly start winding up again. Only the one gear is turning, and it's at a slower tempo than we'd seen for the last two phases. The music starts to sound like an out-of-tune music box. Like something has been fundamentally broken. The remaining dancer still has access to all of their moves, including their signature ability. This single dancer will still charge into the center, and when it finally settles into that embrace, it is alone, staring at nothing. And eventually, you put it out of its misery. It's so interesting. I feel like with other artistic pursuits, like fashion, you'll see someone get like a really positive critique on a garment they've designed where they say that the simplicity of it is executed so well. I don't know that I can readily think of another example of that within game design. Everything from the aesthetic appearance of the enemy, to the moves that they use, to the music, the animations, the phase transitions, every facet of this design is working together to make this fight what it is. Like, seriously, I've beaten over 450 games in the past 7 years, and I don't know if I could readily think of another example of a boss fight that is so easily understood by someone who does not play a lot of video games, but is simultaneously extremely fun and rewarding to be able to see the full breadth of where this boss fight goes. This example should be studied in video game design classes. This, mechanically, is what all of the boss fights across this game, across Dark Souls, across any other game that touches on this genre, this is what it boils down to. Every single time. You figure out the boss's patterns and you exploit them for your own victory. But in this case, the patterns are so straightforward you cannot help but look past them and see just how much is going on with this fight. To be able to see the designer's intent in their final product, it's honestly beautiful to have gotten to see this for the first time as a player. I almost wish I had died to this boss more just so I could continue to experience this fight, to continue to digest these details. If anything, I'm just lucky that this platform gives me an opportunity to spend more time with this boss fight. And I hope you all have enjoyed this as well. I don't know if I'll make this a recurring series, but I'm really liking this idea of, when I'm particularly inspired, just yapping about a topic for a little bit. If you've enjoyed this quick little rant, please leave a comment and let me know. If there's a really positive reception to this, I'll definitely want to start doing more of them immediately. But alright, that's enough yapping. I gotta get back to actually playing this game, because I still have not beaten it yet, and I have to see what else is waiting in store for me. Take care.